Why do we get high? We often view the world in terms of good and bad, right and wrong, heroes and villains. This black and white thinking has been ingrained in us since childhood through our parents, peers, and society. But what happens when this concept has been manipulated and corrupted, and we buy right into it? Today, I want to discuss how the narrative of villain has been weaponized, particularly in the context of drugs and drug users. We are going to explore how this narrative, rooted in the need to create enemies, has shaped our society's views on drugs and drug addiction, and how it has impacted us, our families, and our communities. From the earliest of days, we sought to belong to something greater than ourselves. It's our human nature. In ancient times, survival depended on our ability to work together in tribes, clans, or communities. There, we found our identity and depended on each other, not just for physical survival, but also for emotional and psychological well-being. Here, we picked up the us versus them mentality, which give each and every tribe member a sense of purpose and belonging, while also rallying against the common enemy reinforce the tribe's unity. This tribal instinct can easily be manipulated when leaders exaggerate the threat of a villain. This not only unites people against the common cause, but also keeps them distracted from other issues. In the context of the war on drugs, the users were cast out as villains, someone to fear and fight against. This made it easier to pass policies based on control and marginalization, rather than about solving the root problem of addiction and trauma. This shows us how powerful the hero-villain dichotomy really is, but also how dangerous it can turn, by dividing us and leading us to stigmatize certain groups and prevent us from seeing the full complexity of the issues at hand. Some of you might remember when Nixon declared the war on drugs, and with it, created a new villain, the drug user. But was this really about drugs, or was it about something deeper and darker? What if our issues are not drugs, but the unresolved trauma and emotional instability that leads people to seek an outlet in drugs? From personal experience, I can share how I seek relief from years of accumulated childhood trauma, pain, and abuse, along with generational wounds to which I had no idea what they meant or that they even existed. I didn't know how to ask for help, and to be honest, I didn't want to, because I feared being judged and labeled an addict. Now, looking back at my days of addiction, I can see past that stigma. And if society in a collective effort was able to look past it just like I did, we will see that addiction is simply a product of a deeper mental and emotional instability issues. But addressing those issues isn't profitable. It's more convenient to criminalize them. In that way, we institutionalize the addicts and make tremendous profit under the narrative of keeping our streets clean and our communities safe. If we know all that we know now, why does this narrative continue to exist and persist? Well, I'm glad you asked. Simply because there's power in it. Power to control, to fund certain agendas, and to maintain the status quo. We create villains to justify the need of a hero, which usually is filled by government officials and employees. The war on drugs was never just about drugs. It was about justifying the prison industrial complex. Nixon's aides, John Ehrlichman, had the audacity to say, and I quote, "We couldn't make it illegal to go against war or black, but by getting public to associate marijuana with hippies and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities." Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. End of quote. This shows the mindset of the people in power at that time, the 70s, and how they manipulated the tribe to cut funding for services that could have actually helped addicts, and dealt with them by simply labeling them criminals and punishing them by locking them up and throwing away the key, in order for the U.S. prison system to prosper and eventually hold more than a quarter of all the prisoners of the world. This narrative is profound and has affected countless lives. Families are torn apart due to incarceration. Lives are lost as a result from addiction and its long-term use effects. And communities have been devastated from being targets of anti-drug agencies and their dirty tactics. It's time that we shake off the perspective we have been conditioned to believe. To see that addiction is not a crime, but rather see it as a cry for help. Those people struggling with addiction are not villains. They are our family members, our friends, our neighbors. They need our support, not our judgment. Let's honor those we've lost and those who have fallen victim to this narrative by advocating for a better future, where addiction is acknowledged and perceived as a mental and emotional health issue, not a criminal one. I urge you to reconsider how we view those suffering from addiction. Let's extend a hand to those who are in need instead of pushing them further into the shadows. Our loved ones need us to change that narrative, to be there for them, and support them to fight for the right to heal before it's too late.
How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way, from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you